Hey guys, how's it going? Preparing here. So today I want to talk about the economy in Path of Exile and how it's changed from the beginning of open beta to now, and the reasons of these changes, because the economy of a game is very revealing to what's actually going on within it. So right now, there's a lot of websites out there that post like ratios between currencies, ratios between this and that, and in the end, it's fairly irrelevant because when it really comes down to it, if you check the trade boards, people are having their own way of things. So, people want, right now at least, 18 chaos for 1 exalted, which means, 36 alchemies, and, that leads to other things. And essentially what's been going on lately is a depreciation of the GCPs. There are certain abstract currencies in this game that people just have a value for, but it's not really ratioed between the currencies as it is through the vendors. So for instance, a regret orb will never be worth less than 1 alchemy because you can vendor it for 1 alchemy. But when it comes to like GCPs, when it comes to exalted orbs, these are just like made up ratios. But the reason there's a fairly concrete base is because the Path of Exile game was in closed beta for a very long time, and within that scenario, the rules were pretty set for most of it, despite the large currency inflations from the races, which is no longer in place. What typically went on is, I think it was 12 chaos for 5 GCPs, and 5 GCPs was 2 divines, and 2 divines was an exalted orb. And what we've seen lately is that exalted orbs have gotten much more expensive than everything else, which has stayed relatively the same. I mean, nowadays people trade GCPs for like 2 chaos, so maybe GCPs have gone down a little bit, and exalted orbs have definitely gone way up. So why is this? What's really going on here? Now, of course, when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about the hardcore economy. In default, the ratios are a lot different, and I just don't really know what they are realistically because I don't play on default. But on hardcore, I think the signs are very revealing to what's going on in the game as a whole. So what happens is people get maps like this. They get maps like Crematorium. They chaos spam them until they get like Maze with some other nice things, like this one for instance. And then this map is so hard to get that people actually invest exalted into adding stats to the maps, because when it comes to mapping in Path of Exile, you have to do maps at a certain quantity level, at a certain quality level of a map, to sustain that level. And that level has to be extraordinarily high when it comes to the 76, 77s, so much that people are, destroying crazy amount of exalteds just to level their character. And they have to do this. I mean, they're doing it correctly. This is not something that people anticipated in closed beta, because getting experience was not really that big of a drive to play the game back then, as it is now when people are trying to push into the mid 90s, into the 100s, as you've seen in some cases. And this type of scenario didn't really exist. The flip side is that when open beta was released, a ton of new players came to Path of Exile, and when a new player finds something like an exalted orb, they have no real use for it. Their items are essentially kind of junk, and adding stats to them doesn't really do anything. For them, a lot of them realize that if they sell the exalted orbs for potentially good items, which the people doing maps have plenty of, or smaller currencies, which the people just underneath the people doing maps also have plenty of, what happens is the exalteds end up getting funneled to the people who play the most, which are the people doing the maps, and the chaos are kind of in the mid-range to the people, maybe not doing very high-level maps, maybe doing blue maps. They're getting a lot of chaos drops. They're using the chaos, to buy exalteds from the noobs, and they're using the exalteds to buy good items from the pros. That's kind of how I see the structure of the game in general. But the big change that has been going on is that there's really not that many new people playing the game as there was when open beta was released. And as a consequence, there are very few people who find exalted orbs that can't actually use them. And what results from this is that the exalted orbs on the high end of the market, the people that actually want them as a priority to all other currencies, are having, you know, their supply cut. And because of this, the exalted price has gone, you know, way up. These ratios tend to stabilize, but it is still based on a number of people that fit into these categories, I believe. And, you know, it may be a consequence of exalteds continuing to go up in price until they realize what the stabilization point is. When it comes to trading other things, when it comes to trading, like, you know, good rares, it's pretty easy to do that. You can get kind of whatever you want. It's, you know, to put it similarly, it's kind of approaching the Diablo 3 structure, where the really good items are extremely valuable and the mediocre items are not really very valuable at all. But we're still in the stage where, at least in hardcore, I think it's going to be in this stage almost indefinitely, where the mediocre items, there is still some demand, because people like to try out new characters much more than they would in Diablo, and, you know, the other side is that people lose these characters, so they need these items again and again and again, and there is, you know, still quite a good drive, in my opinion, to play the game for a lot of the players that are still playing it. On the other side, when it comes to the super crazy uniques, you know, these things just tend to go up in price regardless of the appreciation of the currencies like exalted orbs or something like that. You know, you're never going to see these things go away until even more powerful items are added to the game, which may never really be the case. So that's kind of how I see things. It's been going pretty well, and it's been quite an interesting thing to notice when it comes to these currencies' appreciation, depreciation, and kind of the factors that you suppose affect them. Because, you know, in the end, you kind of want to know what's going on so you can be a little bit ahead of the curve and, you know, maybe do a little bit better than the other guys. Hopefully, I've given you guys a slight edge in that category today in my video. Hope you guys maybe use it and get a little bit more wealthy than you otherwise would in the Path of Exiles. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.